There is a conversation that happens in almost every family, and it happens about 20 years too late. It happens at a kitchen table when a parent finally says out loud that they cannot pay for all of it. Sometimes it happens the week the tuition bill arrives. Sometimes it happens years afterward, when the money is already gone and nobody talks about why the retirement plan looks the way it does. And here is the part that makes this so hard. Nobody in that room is doing anything wrong. A parent who quietly moves money out of their own future to keep a promise to their child is not being foolish. They are being a parent. So today I do not want to give you a lecture about numbers. I want to give you one sentence that reframes the whole decision, the real national picture in about 90 seconds, and then the 4 sentences that make this conversation possible without anybody feeling abandoned. I am Sam Whitfield, and this channel is about the part of money that happens between your ears. This is general education, not advice about your situation. Let me start with the sentence, because everything else in this episode hangs off it. There is no loan for retirement. That is the whole thing. There are loans for college. There are grants, scholarships, work-study, payment plans, community college for 2 years, in-state tuition, and 100 other doors. Some of them are bad deals and some of them are fine, but they exist. There is no product on earth that lends you a retirement. When you arrive at 70 without enough, the options are to work longer if your body allows, to spend less than you hoped, or to lean on your children. Read that last option again, because it is the piece that never gets said in these conversations. The money you take out of your retirement to protect your child today has a way of arriving back at your child later, in a form nobody wants, at a moment when they have their own kids and their own mortgage. Helping too much at 22 can become a burden at 52. I am not saying that to frighten anybody. I am saying it because most parents make this decision believing the cost falls only on themselves, and that belief is the error. It is not sacrifice versus selfishness. It is timing and who carries it. All right. Let us look at what actually happens across the country, because I think a lot of people believe they are the only family struggling with this. In the most recent survey year, roughly 3 out of 4 families with an undergraduate used parent income and parent savings to help pay for college, at an average of around $15,700 for the year. And about 1 in 6 families reached into retirement savings to do it. 1 in 6. That is not a fringe behavior. That is a normal Tuesday in American family finance. Zoom out further and the picture gets sharper. Borrowers age 50 and older now hold about a quarter of all outstanding student debt in this country. A quarter. And the Parent Plus program, which is the federal loan a parent takes out for a child's education, has grown past $100 billion owed by several million borrowers, most of whom were already past 50 when the data was last broken out by age. So when a parent sits at a table feeling like the only one who cannot make the numbers work, the truth is they are sitting in the middle of a very large crowd, most of whom are also not talking about it. And the rules on those loans keep moving. Borrowing limits and repayment options have been changing, and I am not going to walk you through the current version tonight because it may be different by the time you watch this. If you already have one of these loans, that is the phone call to make. Find out exactly what you have and what your options are right now, not what they were 3 years ago. Now, here is where I want to slow down and be careful, because there is a version of this advice that is cruel. The internet loves to say never pay for your kids' college. That is easy to say, and it ignores what is actually in a parent's heart. Some families genuinely can pay, and should. Some kids have an opportunity that will change the arc of their life, and a parent who can help without wrecking themselves absolutely should help. The question is not whether to help. The question is whether you know your number before you help. Your number is the amount you can give without moving your own retirement date, without stopping your own contributions, and without borrowing against your own future. That number can be large or small, and neither one makes you a good or bad parent. What makes the difference is whether you decided it in advance, calmly, or whether you discovered it later by watching your account drain. Here is a way to think about it that has helped people I know. Imagine you told your 22-year-old the truth about the trade. Imagine saying, I can put $15,000 a year toward this, and if I go further than that, there is a real chance I will need help from you in my 70s. Most kids, told plainly, will say do not do it. They will take the loan, or the cheaper school, or the extra job. They say that because the debt they can see is easier to accept than the guilt they cannot. The problem is that we almost never say it plainly. We say we will figure it out. We say do not worry about money. We say it out of love, and then we carry the whole thing alone. Which brings me to the conversation and the 4 sentences. Sentence 1. Here is exactly what we can contribute, and here is the number. Say the number, not a range, not a vague reassurance, an actual figure per year. A specific number turns an emotional negotiation into a planning problem, and planning problems can be solved by a family together. Vagueness cannot. Sentence 2, here is why that is the number, and it is not about how much we love you. This sentence exists to break the link your child will otherwise make between money and worth. Kids, even grown ones, translate a financial no into an emotional no unless you cut that connection explicitly. So cut it explicitly and do it in the same breath as the number. Sentence 3. Here is what we would like your part to look like, and let us decide it together. Not here is what you have to do. Together. Scholarships, a job during the year, the first 2 years somewhere cheaper, a different school entirely, a gap year to work. Your child is far more capable of solving this than most parents assume, and being asked to solve it is a gift disguised as a burden. Sentence 4. If our situation changes, we will tell you right away, and I need you to tell us too. This one keeps the door open in both directions. Plenty of families make a plan in the spring and then something happens in November, a layoff, an illness, a roof. The families who suffer most are not the ones whose plan changed. They are the ones who kept pretending the plan had not changed. 4 sentences, 20 minutes at a kitchen table. And they work much better at 16 than at 18, and better at 18 than in the week the tuition bill lands. Let me show you 2 families, because the same love produces very different outcomes depending on when the number gets said. The first family says nothing. The parents are proud, the daughter is bright, and the school is expensive. They cover the gap the first year by pausing retirement contributions, just for a year. The second year the gap is bigger, so they take a parent loan. By the 4th year there is a second loan, and the pause on contributions has become the new normal. The daughter graduates, gets a good job, and has almost no debt of her own. She also has no idea what it cost, because nobody ever told her. 12 years later, her father is 66 with a loan payment still attached to his name and a retirement account that lost its best decade of compounding. Nobody in that family did anything wrong on purpose. They simply never said a number out loud. The second family sits down when the daughter is a junior in high school. The parents say, "We can do about $12,000 a year, here is why, and it is not a comment on you." She is upset for about a day. Then she does what teenagers actually do when you treat them like adults. She applies to 2 schools she had not considered, gets money from one of them, takes a modest loan in her own name, and works summers. She graduates with debt she chose, understands, and can carry on a starting salary. Her parents keep contributing to their retirement the entire time. Here is the part I want you to notice. The second daughter is not less loved, she is more informed. And in her 30s, when her parents do not need anything from her, she will get a benefit she never sees on a statement. So what do you actually do if you want to help without dismantling your own future? 3 shapes, and any of them beats a silent transfer. The first is a fixed annual number that never comes out of retirement contributions. Decide it once, write it down, and treat it like a bill you have already agreed to pay. If the school costs more than your number, plus what your child can arrange, then that school is not the plan, and that is not a tragedy. The second is helping after graduation instead of during. A parent who keeps their own contributions intact and then helps a graduate with a few $100s a month toward their loan is doing something mathematically similar and emotionally different, because now the help is a choice they can adjust rather than a debt in the parent's name. The third is helping with the things around the degree rather than the degree itself, housing for a couple of years, a reliable used car so the job is reachable, a phone plan, or health coverage while they get established. These are smaller numbers with a large effect on a young person's ability to save, and none of them require a loan against your 60s. And a note for grandparents, since they are often the quiet third party in this. If you want to help, ask the parents what shape is most useful before you write anything, because well-meant money that arrives in the wrong form can affect financial aid, and it can also quietly override a boundary the parents just spent a year setting. Now let me speak to the parent who is watching this a decade too late, because that is a real person, and they deserve more than a lesson about what they should have done. If you already borrowed or already drained something, you are not in a hopeless position, and you are certainly not a fool. 2 things are still true. First, find out precisely what you owe and what programs apply to it today, because those rules have moved and people leave options unused out of embarrassment. Second, tell your children the truth about your situation while you still have years to plan with them rather than months to react. That second one is harder than the first, and it matters more. The families that handle this well are not the ones with the most money. They are the ones where everybody knows the actual numbers. And if your children are already grown and doing well, there is a version of this conversation for you too, and it is short. Here is what our retirement looks like. Here is where the documents are, and here is what we would want if we needed care. That is not a morbid conversation. It is the same conversation as the college one, only later, and it removes the same fog. Let me put it back together. There is no loan for retirement, and the cost of overhelping does not stay with you. It travels to the same child you were protecting. Around 3/4 of families use parent income and savings for college. About 1 in 6 reach into retirement money. Borrowers over 50 hold roughly 1/4 of all student debt, and parent loans have grown past $100 billion. Know your number before the conversation, not after. And use the 4 sentences: the number, why it is not about love, what their part looks like, and the promise to keep each other updated. Here is what I want to leave you with. Every parent in this situation is trying to buy the same thing, and it is not a degree. It is the feeling of having given their child every chance. But the chance you give a child is not only tuition. It is also arriving at 75 without needing to move into their spare room. Both of those are gifts. Only one of them gets talked about at graduation. Tell me in the comments how it went in your family, or how it is going right now. Did anybody say a real number out loud, and what happened when they did? Somebody reading is about to have this conversation this month, and your experience will help them more than mine will. I am Sam Whitfield. Think slower, decide better, and I will see you next time.